Let's set a little mood before we meet our guests. Look, let's go back to the 30s and the 40s when on Sunday nights all America used to turn on their radio and hear something like this.
Broadcasting from New York City, the Lucky Strike program, starring Jack Benny with Mary Livingstone, Phil Harris, Rochester, Dennis Day, and filling in for little old fatty Don Wilson is yours truly, Kenny Delmar.
Yes, you've heard that before. And I looked all over for one with Don Wilson, and I couldn't find
one.
Jack Benny is here today. Thank you for coming, Jack.
You're welcome.
And
Pleasure.
How many Sunday nights we would turn on the radio and hear that? I don't possibly imagine that you would remember when you went to New York City, but did you broadcast on the coast sometimes? And then
Well, we used to do that. See, we started in New York.
Right.
On May 10th, 1932.
Wow.
And we did a couple of years in New York, 2 or 3 years. Then we went out to the coast and stayed there.
One of the great fun things to do in America now, of course, is nostalgia, and people collect old radio shows.
Yeah.
This has become one of the great things to do. And so many of your shows are considered among collector's items.
And you know, funny thing, when people tell me about how much they like the radio shows, naturally I appreciate it, but I'm not the kind of a person that delves very much into nostalgia. You see, I don't care about nostalgia. It doesn't interest me at all. Nothing interests me except what I'm doing now and what I'm going to do in the future. I'm interested now in what happens at the Mill Run Theater. Then I'm interested in what I'm doing. I just gave a concert in Houston, Texas, Saturday night. I'm interested in that. But to go back, when people say how much they like me on radio, I appreciate that. But that was not as interesting to me as when we got into television. Now, when we got into television, that was the next move. There's where I had to make the transition, and I was able to make it. Now, I can only be interested in what I am doing now and what I'm going to do in the future. To look back, as far as I'm personally, that's good for you to do, to look back and listen to these things. But it wouldn't interest me one bit to just go back and think about the old days, because that's done with. It's over with. And in no way, if people say to me, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could do radio again? I said, yes, if everybody would listen.
Well,
you know,
sure.
That's it. But otherwise, I couldn't be interested.
Jack, this, I think, is not known to you, but a fellow sat in that very same chair that you're sitting in a month ago and said almost the very same thing that you've just told me today, and his name is Rudy Valley. Rudy was here doing a concert, and we talked about the old days, and right in the middle of the conversation, he says, what are we talking about the old days for? And he got quite excited and emotional about it. He feels similarly to the way that you do.
Except that in the case of Rudy Valley, he hasn't been doing too much at present.
Right.
So it's all right to reminisce a lot about the radio day. Believe me, when I was in radio, I loved radio. But when I went into television, I loved television. I better like everything that I'm going into, or that's important at the moment. That's the thing I better like doing.
I think of a story to tell you that will please you, and to those of you listening to the radio today, it will prove to you Jack's point. Last year, Jack was at Mill Run with Lana Cantrell around Labor Day. And in our home, we have 6 sons at our house, Jack. The oldest is 16. The youngest one is only 5. And usually my wife and I go to the openings. But Sheila was busy that night, PTA meeting or something. And so I said to the fellows, who wants to go? I'm going to see Jack Benny. And the 15-year-old said, what's his average? How much is he hitting? And my 13-year-old, who was 12 then, said, hey, Dad, I'd like to go. Now, he's a 12-year-old boy of today's age. We went to the Mill Run Theater, and he has been talking about Jack Benny for a year. He so thoroughly enjoyed the show, so much appreciated what it was that you were doing. And, of course, this is, I guess, the story of Jack Benny.
Well, the kids, I think the reason I've always done well with the kids, because they understand situation humor more. They understand it. It's easier for them to comprehend than just out-and-out jokes.
Well, you never told a joke as such in your life, did you?
Not a joke per se. Right. Not a joke. I talk, and I try to talk in a humorous vein and get a lot of gags over, but they all pertain to a subject. I try to stay on a subject as long as I possibly can. Now, the trick I try to do is when I want to change the subject, I try to do it so gracefully that you, as a listener, are not aware of the fact that I've gotten into another subject. And that's the way I try to do it.
Jack Benny is our guest. Jack opens at Mill Run tomorrow night. California is your home now, Jack, and has been for many years?
Yes, for a long, long time. By the way, I just heard you use a word continuously, and it made me think of something. You know, I always say it wrong, I guess, because everybody says continuously, and then it brought me, I always say continually. Is there such a word as continually?
No,
there is a word, isn't it?
Listen, if
but
I could...
I must be wrong, because continuously is used, when I hear it used correctly, it's continuously.
I tell you what, if I had the strength to lift the unabridged dictionary over in the corner...
we'd find out about it now. Well, anyway, that's not important to the listeners. I just brought that up because I happen to hear you say
Except
it.
Words...
I'm not going to bring up anything while we're...
Words are an important thing to Jack Benny. They always have been. And I'd like to have some fun, if you don't mind. I'd like to go back to one of your old radio shows, replay... You mentioned getting on a subject and staying on it, or I guess in the trade they call milking it. Yeah. But of course, Jack Benny always knew when to stop. But one of the rather continual fun things on the Jack Benny radio shows of yesteryear were the days or evenings that you would find yourself in a railroad station.
Yeah.
And we used to hear that wonderful. Well, let's listen to this little bit from the old Jack Benny radio shows, and then we'll talk about the people who were involved. When you tuned in the radio on Sunday nights, and you would hear Jack say something like this.
Now, let's see. The ticket window should be...
Train leaving on track 5 for Anaheim, Azusa, and Cucamonga. Look, we're not asking much. 2 of you, or even 1 of you. Just somebody to keep the engineer company.
Here's the ticket window. Oh, pardon me. Are you the ticket clerk?
So what do you think I am in this cage, a canary?
Don't get huffy about it. All I want is a ticket on the cheese.
Oh. Would you like the $60 ticket or the $140 ticket?
Well, what's the difference?
Well, with the $140 ticket, you ride inside.
Well, naturally, I want to ride on the inside. After all, I'm not as young as I used to be.
You're not as young as anybody used to be.
Now, don't get fresh. All I want is a ticket to New York.
Return trip?
No, one way.
Good.
Now, cut that out and stop wasting time. I have to get to New York by Thursday.
I'm sorry, but our trains are all booked up.
Well, think, man. Think there must be one train that has room for me.
Leaving on track 5 for Anaheim, Azusa, and Cucamonga. Look, there are 5,000 people in this station. Isn't there somebody, anybody, under any volunteers? Please. I'll get fired if I don't get somebody on the train for Anaheim, Azusa, and Cucamonga.
Look, clerk, I've waited here long enough. You've just got
Well, you're in luck, Blue Eyes. I found one ticket on the cheap.
Good, I'll take it.
The chief leaving for New York. All aboard.
Hurry up, will you, clerk? Thanks. Wait for me.
Hey, Jackson, we're moving. Hurry up.
I'm coming. Wait for me.
Oh, it brings back some memories, and even Jack, you acted here in the studio as if you'd forgotten a couple of those.
I did. I forgot that whole routine. I knew we did things like it at the at the railroad station or the airport, but I forgot that particular routine. I sat here and laughed at myself. I laughed at my show and my people.
Let's see now the voice of the train master.
That's Mel Blanc.
Now you used Mel a lot, didn't you?
Yes.
Did I read once or hear once that he was actually the voice of the Maxwell, the car?
He was the voice of the Maxwell. He was the parrot that I had, the Polly, remember?
Right.
And the train announcer. And he did practically anything.
He's a versatile performer.
Most versatile man.
And, of course, the fellow behind the ticket counter, he again was...
Frank Nelson.
Frank Nelson.
Yeah, the fellow always supposed to have hated me.
Right.
For no reason, just hated me.
But he had that voice and that ability to rise in inflection.
Yes, he just always hated me.
Frank is still around, is he not?
Oh, sure.
In fact, most of the people are still around. Mel Blanc is around.
You know, we did a thing a few months ago. There's a share party that they call it the share party in Los Angeles. Can I take a few minutes?
I'd like to hear about it.
Well, because this is kind of interesting, and it's an annual benefit charity party for children, retarded children. And so and the theme of the show was 1940. So we did one of these railroad stations in which I had Mel Blanc and Frank Nelson and Phil Harris.
Wow.
Not Mary, Phil Harris, and some of the Stooges, and myself, Benny Rubin and myself. So we did one of these scenes, and they screamed at it. Then I said, because it was a very intimate, sophisticated audience, then I said to them, in this day of permissiveness, this is probably the way we could do it now. And we took the exact same scene and dirtied it up. But it was very, very funny, and I'll tell you why it was funny. Because it wouldn't have been funny if they hadn't laughed at the clean version. You see?
Right.
Then I would have felt kind of icky about it. I would have felt we're doing something dirty. But the fact that they screamed so at the clean version that it sort of made it all right to do the risque version. And particularly when I announced that, and we're all friends in a theatrical audience, when I said with this day of permissiveness, this is probably the way we could do it now, and they were expecting, then they really howled. And we took the same identical scenes and made it very risque, and it was funny, where otherwise I would never have done it.
Jack, you have been through so many periods of show business where the things that are funny seem to change. We're into, as you bring up, this rather permissive state now where almost anything goes, and yet your act has never changed in a sense.
No. I today everything goes, but I wouldn't change, except there are a few things I can say that are not too bad because you are permitted to do it today, and they would expect a little of it. But I still watch myself very, very carefully. I think, I personally, and I'm not a prude, believe me, I think this era of permissiveness has gone way, way overboard. And I kind of hope it'll reach a saturation point where they'll really just come back to good movies and good stage shows without depending on the kind of material they're using now, because it's almost impossible to believe what you can see today. I think some of that stuff, I hate to have to say it, but I think it's the cause of a lot of problems that we have.
Jack, before 1932, before that first radio broadcast, you were on the vaudeville circuit as such.
Right.
Now, in those days, was there...
I was in shows, too.
Shows.
And also had made some movies.
Right.
Yeah.
In those days, was there a certain era of permissiveness?
No.
Even on the vaudeville stage?
No, you could say something, but it would have to be very, very mild. Even certain words. We were never permitted to use the word, pardon me, hell or damn. Well, my goodness, hell or damn today is like saying and, if, or but.
Just about.
It means you just can say anything on the stage. And I don't mean by that I keep my shows so perfectly clean, but I keep it clean enough so that nobody has to worry about bringing their children.
I can vouch for that.
I always say by bringing their children or Pat Boone in to see me.
we suggest that tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday or Friday or Saturday or Sunday you get to the Mill Run Theater in the Gulf Mill Shopping Center and see Jack Benny. Do you like to come back, of course, because this is, I suppose, like coming home, or it's not too far from home anyway.
It's Chicago is practically my home because I lived in Waukegan. You know. I like to come here. I still have some friends left and a few relatives. My sister, thank God, is here in Chicago living. And I have a lot of very dear friends in Chicago that I like to be with. Almost as close or as close as some of my very dear friends in Beverly Hills, where I live. It's just that I'm not able to see them as often, that's all. And they're not in the business like in Beverly Hills, where I live. Most of my friends there, most of my friends there are in show business, are either television or radio, and some remotely associated with it, you see. And then some not in the business. Some are in stores, who own stores. But when I come here, I have a few very, very dear, close friends that I like to see. In fact, we talk on the phone a lot, you know.
They're going to be more than
my sister, of course.
More than just a few dear, close friends in the audiences at Mill Run Theater. And Jack's going to be doing a Wednesday matinee. Now, I thought I'd bring this up because there are a lot of folks who, for one reason or another, can't go out at night. And they don't have that many matinees at Mill Run. But Jack's going to do a show Wednesday afternoon as well as Wednesday night. Jack will be there tomorrow night right through Sunday. But, Jack, you told us at the beginning of the broadcast that you had just come from Houston, where you played your violin with the Houston Symphony.
Symphony, yes.
There must be a story about all of this. When did this come about, the playing with the symphony orchestras?
About 15 years ago, I decided I was going to give concerts for charity. And I started practice, and I had a practice. I hadn't touched a fiddle in years and years and years.
Now, you studied
when I was a kid. I studied in Chicago with a great teacher at Chicago Musical College. But I dropped it when I was a kid, and then I forgot how to play entirely. So when I decided to give concerts, I had to start all over again. I took lessons. I still do. And then I started to give concerts, and I gave them for any charity. I remember once one of my first concerts was here in Chicago with the Chicago Symphony for the City of Hope. Then I was supposed to give a concert for President Truman, Harry Truman, who was one of my closest friends in the political field. You know? And he wanted some publicity for his library in Independence. And then he called me about 4 or 5 weeks before, and he said, Jack, I don't need that money as badly as the Symphony Orchestra does. They're ready to fold. Do you think you could switch that and do it for the Symphony Orchestra, and I'll run it for you? So I said, I still called him President. I said, well, Mr. President, you just gave me a sensational idea, and you don't even know what it is. I said, not only will I do it in Kansas City for the orchestra, but from now on, my concerts will be for no one else except the symphony orchestras, either for their being able to sustain or for their pension fund. And from that day on, it was Truman that really gave me the idea. Now, Saturday night, I gave a concert in Houston. The only concert that I was paid for in 15 years. And the cute thing about it was, this was one of their series of pop concerts. And I told them, they asked me what I charge for those, and I said, well, you know, I don't charge anything. I do this for the musicians or their pension fund. But this Houston is probably the only major city in the United States that has never asked me for help. They said, well, we actually don't need it, so we're going to pay you for this concert. I said, well, you don't have to. I'll do it for nothing. They said, no, we insist on paying you. Don't charge us too much, but we insist on paying you. So I said to them, well, in that case, I'll give you a choice. Either you must take me for nothing, or you must pay me the top price that you pay any big artist. because that's the only way I work. There's nothing in between. Now, you've got a choice. So they said, well, we will pay you what our top price is for the pop concerts, which was good enough. And I said, all right, I'll take it then. But remember, I offered you nothing if you give it to the musicians. Said, we don't need it. So I gave the concert Saturday night in a beautiful hall, acoustically marvelous. And the hall seated 3,000 people, and we took in about 2,800 people. But the amazing part of it was, this was our opposition, Elvis Presley, in a big hall that seats 15,000 people that was jammed for Elvis, because, you know, he does terrific business, and a great big football game on that not only they go to, but others they could watch on television. So I thought, oh, my goodness, this is the first time I'm getting paid. I'm afraid I'm not going to do business. And our place was practically jammed. And so they made money, and they paid me my salary, and that was it. My first paying job. As a matter of fact, I've done so many benefits lately, I was kind of glad to get paid, just for a change.
Jack, when you do perform with a symphony, what do you do? What do you usually perform? What works?
Well, mine is actually a satire. See, I do the whole last half. I do over an hour. Mine is a satire of a great violinist, where I think I'm the world's greatest violinist. And I come out in tails, white tie, and the violin. And I play all classical numbers except the very last one, which is a jazz number, which they don't usually hear and which they love. And it's full of laughs, and I try to play as well as I can.
Yeah, I was going to say, you take your playing seriously.
Yes, but I don't play well. I try to. And I play heavy numbers, and I get through them some way. And I talk in between numbers, because they want to hear that, too. And it's a wonderful evening in a concert hall. And I enjoy it more than anything because I'm playing to a concert-going, sophisticated, fine, dignified audience, which you don't always get every place, True. You see. And so, therefore, I love it, and they love it. And it's been very, very successful. And my closest friends now in show business are in that field, like Isaac Stern, Piatigorsky, and Milstein, and all of those people are now my closest friends.
Do they ever give you little tips about, now, Jack, the bowing?
Isaac tries to help me a lot. Isaac tells me what to do, so that how to play certain little numbers, so that when I do make mistakes, they're not noticeable, except to the big artists and to critics. See, I can't fool critics, and I can't fool the great soloist or the musicians in the orchestra. I can fool a lot of people in the audience. They think I can play better than I do, you know.
Do you still practice?
Oh, yes. I take lessons.
You still do?
I take lessons and I practice.
That's wonderful.
I love it. I love practicing. I'll tell you, I'm a frustrated violinist. And if there was such a miracle, and God came to me and said, Jack, you know, he knows everybody. And if he said to me, Jack, I will make you, starting tomorrow, the world's greatest violinist, but you must never tell jokes anymore, I believe now I would accept it. I wouldn't accept it 10 years ago or five years ago. But I think now, if there was that kind of a miracle, I love the violin so much, and I'm such a frustrated violinist, that I think at this time I would accept it. If, as I say, if there was a miracle, God came to me and said, tomorrow, probably not tonight because he's busy with other things like Vietnam and everything. But
Jack Benny comes to the Mill Run Theater tomorrow night and through the week. And Jack, of course, who has invaded every possible nook and cranny of show business over the years, old-time radio and vaudeville and plays and movies and television. Last year, somehow you persuaded someone very close to you to appear with you on television. In fact, wasn't that the first time that Mary had appeared with you in a long time, Jack?
Yes. I got Mary on because it was the 20th anniversary. And the only way I could get around, there were a couple of things that happened, but one I'll explain. Otherwise, we'd be here till 3 o'clock. Because Mary just never liked to work. She was always nervous. Now, you know, if you ever heard or saw somebody that didn't look nervous or sound nervous, it was Mary. She was always at ease. And I never knew it. All these years she worked with me, that she was a nervous wreck. So one day she came to me and said, Jack, you have to let me off. Said, I'm a nervous wreck. I said, well, why didn't you tell me? Well, fortunately, I never depended on any one person on my show. You know,
Right.
I had a cast. When Mary left, I got somebody else. Well, anyway, now, last year, we did an anniversary show, my 20th anniversary on television. And I had Bob Hope, I had Johnny Carson. I had Bob Hope, I had Frank Sinatra. And people then all my cast associated with me. And the way I got Mary on, I says, look, Doll, I always call her Doll. I said, look, it's going to look bad if I get everybody on my show and not you. So come on. And she kept saying yes, and then the next day she'd say no, and this went on. So finally I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. We will shoot your scene 4 weeks in advance. And I'll have an audience, because I'll do something else at the time, you know. And if you do not like what you see, and I couldn't have a big audience, so she wouldn't have gone on. I just had to have the cast and friends, and I told them to laugh it up a little bit. Now, help Mary, you know. So I said, you do the scene. And I gave her her favorite director, Freddie DeCordova, who now produces the Johnny Carson show. And Lucille Ball did a cute scene. She played her maid, you know, just as a little surprise. I said, Mary, we'll shoot this scene 4 weeks ahead of time. And I promise you that when you see it, if you don't like it or don't like yourself, even though we all do, and you might be overly critical, if you don't like it, I will not let it go into the show. Now, you can't ask for anything better than that. So we shot it, and then we looked at it, and Mary liked it. And I said, now you're satisfied that this goes in the show? She says, yes. Now the show went on. I had Sinatra, who was just great. You know, and you know, when Sinatra says he's going to retire, you can believe him. Because when he said to me, Jack, I'll be on your show, you can believe him. Anything Sinatra says, he's a marvelous man. Bob Hope came on. Lucille Ball came on. Everybody came on my anniversary show. So we did it. Now, when the show was over, now we had a lot of friends in the house, and Mary wasn't worried about it. She saw herself and liked it, so we all sat there. And everybody was telling her how much they loved her on the show. And fans, we got wires and letters from fans, and she got telephone calls. I said, how do you feel about it now? And she says, fine, but don't ever ask me to go on again. How do you like that for a finish? Don't ever ask me to go on again.
And she meant it?
And meant it.
How did you get her on in the first place? That was on the radio.
Well,
show.
that's it. Oh, well, then she
ago.
Wasn't as nervous.
Oh,
You see, when you start in show business, you're not nervous. See, you have it's afterwards is when you think you've accomplished it. I got something to tell you. I'm more nervous giving concerts now than when I first started, because when I first started, I knew I was lousy, a bad violinist, and I knew it, and it didn't bother me. I gave that kind of a concert. Now that I've been studying and practicing and should be playing much better, which I'm not, now is when I get nervous because I think I ought to be better.
It's an amazing thing. Little insight here into one of America's favorites.
I've talked long enough.
Jack, we only have about 2 minutes left. Jack Benny has been visiting with us today, and I've noticed something about you and a fellow that you know, too. Both of you, I don't know whether it's an outlook on life that you and George Burns have. You look young, you act young, you just seem to thoroughly enjoy life.
I think we do. I think George enjoys it even more than I do. Maybe because he doesn't work as much and I have too much to think about, and he doesn't care about working as much. But George looks marvelous. You know, George Burns, I always do jokes about him, but I'll tell you something serious about him. And it's not serious per se, in the word serious, but George has a routine that he does every day of his life. He gets up early in the morning, and he have a very light breakfast. Winter and summer, he goes out by the pool, and he takes exercises. Then he swims a certain length of time every morning, and it doesn't change. Then he goes to his office for, let's say, an hour or two. Then he goes to the Hillcrest Country Club, has lunch, and you can bet $1,000 to $1 he's going to eat fish that day, and you will end up a winner. And fish is supposed to be very good for you, so he's very healthy. Then he goes in and he plays about 3 hours of bridge. And then he goes home and takes a nap about 4:30. And when he takes a nap, he takes his shirt off and he puts a little piece of paper on his chest. And I said, "What? I saw him. Why do you do it?" They said, "That keeps you from catching cold." A little piece of paper. This I never heard of. But anyway, he is the healthiest man, and he looks, he's only 2 years younger than I am. And he looks just marvelous.
Jack,
and he's the funniest man in the whole world.
Has he ever said anything serious to you or?
Yeah, we have had.
Well, in private, but
we've had many serious conversations.
Because you two kid each other so much.
Yeah, we've had many serious conversations. But when he wants to be silly, like if he were sitting here right now, he'd have you all right on the floor. Because you know why he's funny? Evidently, I haven't got time to tell you.
Unfortunately, you don't.
No, all right.
In fauld we're 30 seconds over.
I was just going to tell you why he's funny.
Can you say it in 15 seconds?
Yes, because he would come to this desk not to be funny. But all you'd have to do is say one thing, and he'd make a monkey out of you in 30 seconds.
I'm glad Jack Benny was here, not George Burns. Jack, we'll see you at Mill Run Theater.
Come every night, because I need, I want everybody there.
Jack, thanks for joining us.
If you come every